So, how do you hold someone accountable to reach their potential as a leader?
So I have lots of feelings about this, lots of thoughts. To me, this is all about culture and the culture you create in your team. It's about creating a dynamic where people feel safe, people feel like they can grow and they can develop, and it's a place where they want to see themselves succeed. So this can look like a whole bunch of different things. This can look like you as a leader modeling what your own development and growth looks like. So, whether that be through 360 reviews, collecting feedback, and then not just collecting the feedback, but sharing it and doing your own self awareness work and sharing that back with your team, whether that be through professional development and encouraging that for your team, setting goals with them that are axed on what they want to do and how they want to develop. And so for me, it's really about the dynamic you create and then understanding what potential means for the individual employee. Because I think often it is really easy to assume what someone's potential should be or what you think it could be without really asking them. And so I think you really need to peel it back, sit down and understand, what does potential mean for them? What does success look like for them? And then from there, create a plan on how do they want to get there. But to do that, it has to be the right environment and it has to be the right culture.
For me, there's two elements to this. And one is when we're wearing our manager hat, and one's when we're wearing our leader coach hat. And as a manager, we're accountable to hold people responsible for the tasks, expectations of their role. And so we accomplish that through performance management, performance assessment processes, making sure that everyone knows what it is that they're meant to be contributing to the workplace.
Right.
But then beyond that, if we're talking about how do you move beyond that to what maybe I see or other people expect to be your greatest potential, I don't think there is any holding a person accountable at that point. I'm accountable as a manager and make sure they perform in the workplace at the level of expectations that we have a common understanding of. But beyond that, there are so many facets to why a person would want to perform at a higher level, what success looks like for them. For me, I might be looking at them and saying, wow, if I had your skills and your talents, I would be the next ADM. Why are you happy just being, an analyst or at the manager level? But that might not be what success is for them. Maybe success for them is performing well for a 40-hour work week and then going home and being, I don't know, like a really great equestrian or a really great sports coach or a really great something else. And it's not for me to define potential. It's for me to then put on my leader as a coach hat and work with them, like ensure as a base level, they have the tools, the equipment, the training to move further ahead, that I can, to the extent that they want to, work with them on, are there self-limiting beliefs at play? Is that something we need to have a discussion about? But it's really for them to write their story and for them to define what success is for them. And sometimes I think we do people a disservice when we push them beyond their comfort level. And I think that in an EDI world, we see a corporate advantage in advancing certain people, and it is for the right reasons. And absolutely, we need to get there as a society, but it can't be at the cost to a given individual who really inside feels like, I want to do it, but I'm not ready to do it yet. Or I would do it, but I want to do these other things more. And so, really letting the person define their own trajectory, but then standing by to say, I'm here to support you, root for you, be your ambassador, be your cheerleader. And if it's a matter of training, if it's a matter of exposure, I can do all of that for you. You let me know what is going to be helpful for you.
I think there's a huge discourse right now between mentorship, sponsorship, and then coaching. And I think there's some value in having all three of them in the world of professional development. But when we talk about moving someone along their trajectory within their career, I think you really need to focus on what an employee is interested in and where they want to be. And so when I think about this and when I think about someone's potential, and I think about the idea of mentorship, which is often focused on advice and where I've been and what I've done as a mentor, sort of role modeling, that's where I see the value of coaching really come in, because it's really focused on what is at the heart of the individual employee. What is their North Star? Where do they want to go? And so when I think about that, and I think about the time you can invest in an individual employee to really understand where they want to go, that to me is like the gold, because there you will really find out where an employee can really see their worth, not just on your team, but maybe within the broader organization and even beyond.
Yeah. Whenever we talk about, we come from a similar organizational structure where there are performance management reviews. I imagine that that's very common in other places. I mean, there's probably many places that have these performance measurement tools for their employees. So you mentioned that as a manager, you have these skills to hold people accountable to what they're supposed to be doing. But do you feel that there is room for coaching inside of the employee performance management process in any given organization? Do you feel like there's room for coaching there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes that's probably the piece that's missing, because I'll speak from my experience. I don't think that we are really using the performance management process the way it was intended to be used, or the way that it has the potential to be used. And I think what's missing is that managers and leaders maybe don't know how to coach or haven't developed that skill set yet. And so what it turns into is just, oh, the deadline's coming up and twice a year I have to write something down about you. And because we've not done the coaching all year round, I'm going to stick to something just like really safe and really superficial and really surface level. And it's not going to serve either of us particularly well. Mm-hmm. But if we actually were doing a coaching engagement all along, all through the year, that could be such a rich process, and we could really develop so much talent.
I think there's always room for coaching in an employee manager relationship. Always, whether it's during a performance conversation or not, there's always that opportunity. But I think particularly when you're looking at performance, I think that's a prime opportunity for some coaching to understand what's at the root, whether it be a performance issue or whether an employee is succeeding. I think that's a great opportunity for a coaching conversation. And much like Lorelei has said, I think this skill set is maybe just not yet developed, unfortunately, in many leaders, because of the sort of mentorship type model that we rely on in leadership development, right? Because there is just not enough attention and resources, both time and money, paid to leadership training and development, right? And so we don't put enough energy into training our leaders, despite the fact that we depend on people to run our organizations. So I think their coaching is critical to healthy and productive teams.
So when I think about my parents' generation, a lot of it was the mentorship model. If you wanted to reach your potential, you looked at someone who did something that you maybe aspired to or looked up to, and so you went to that person or you modeled what that person did. When we're talking about potential, we're talking about a new generation of people coming in the workforce. Where do you think coaching plays a role in that?
So increasingly, research is demonstrating that coaching will play a huge role, particularly with Generation Z. We're seeing that coaching is what they're looking for from leaders. So that is a particularly big piece of this. But also what research is showing us is that careers aren't linear anymore. People are, in particular Generation Z, are looking for careers with purpose. And so if we're looking at this piece around purpose, but we're also looking at this fact that careers are no longer linear, and we think about the question around potential, as a leader, I think it's really paramount that when we think about development, we cannot have this narrow view of developing people for the job that they're in. Of course, someone has to have the critical competencies and skills to do the job, but we need to think about people and developing them for the skills that lie ahead, and developing them as a person, right? And so I think about not just skills of the future, which seems to be the trendy thing of today, but I think about really preparing people for the workforce and moving them ahead. And that can't just be to stay in your team or to stay in your organization. I think you have to be prepared that people might leave. They might go and do a short assignment here, or they might go and do a stretch project over there. And I think as a leader, you need to be supportive of that, because ultimately, I think you'll see better retention, because you'll see people who have seen you invest in them and in return will want to invest in you.
I think an important piece to consider here too is that we are recruiting for diversity. And let's be frank, we're not doing diversity because we have to do it. We're doing diversity because we know that it creates better workplaces and it creates better outcomes. But if we're bringing in diverse people with diverse skill sets and we're saying, we want you to come to us with all of your differences,
Yes.
then we have to be prepared to coach everyone as per their differences, as per their individual presence in the workforce, and not just cut everyone out of the same cloth and say, if you are in this role at this level, these are the skills you need to do. And to move to the next level, you have to do these other skills. There's a misalignment between that model and a diverse workforce. So coaching will help us to bridge the gap between what we used to do and what we're moving to, and allow us to actually sit with individuals and really get down to, who are you as a person? What are your skills? What are your dreams? What are your ideas? What are your needs? And I think that we can trust this generation more than other generations to actually come in and to be willing to advocate for themselves, to be willing to be authentically themselves, no matter what criticism people might leverage. That is really the ideal. It's really what we want from people is come in, bring us your whole self, and we will give you a platform from which to launch.
Yeah.
Times are changing. We can't, as leaders, just assume that we know the reality of our colleagues and our employees. And I think the only real way we can understand who they are is through giving them the voice to tell us. And coaching gets us there.
Yeah. In speaking the way you just spoke, as somebody who has been on the other side of being different and having different needs inside of a workplace, it is so pressing now more than ever to have leaders who can think like the both of you think, because there are still quite a few leaders who are of the mind that your potential is a reflection of me. And as a result of that, you are led or directed or managed in such a way that it's really the requirement of whatever the manager wants their performance review to say is how you can express yourself. You said that coaching would bridge the gap between the old way and the new way. From your perspectives, what do you think that bridge looks like?
Well, I think the outcome of using that bridge is, Kelly said, people get to talk about who they are. They get to be heard. They get to have some control, some input into how it is that they engage in the workplace, how it is that they accomplish tasks, how it is that they contribute more, better, in a way that is really inspiring for them.
Yeah.
And coaching is just such a great vehicle to get there, is to sit down with another person and to really have that open-minded, curious coaching conversation where you're asking people open-ended questions and they're letting them guide, contribute, design how they are going to contribute in the workplace. And there's so much room for us to then adapt and flow and allow for that. Like, why would we not want a person to contribute in the best way that they can towards outcomes, rather than saying, no, you have to perform in these lanes. Like, this is it. There are so many great ways to meet our outcomes and to have people doing it in a way that is really inspiring and maybe more easy for them. Like, why try to fit someone into a box that doesn't work for them if there's another way that they can accomplish the same thing better with greater ease for them, which then leaves them with additional cycles to do additional other things. Coaching is how we make that happen. That's how we make the magic.
The squiggly career you're talking about, not putting people in boxes anymore. There's no more lanes. There's a lot more fluidity in the reality of life, and coaching allows for that fluidity. I love that.
The world is changing so fast. And we can't assume that the knowledge, skills, and abilities that we have amassed over 15, 20 years now equips us to know all things and to know the best way forward for our teams and our workplaces. So coaching allows us to get all kinds of insights from other people about how to do things better, about what the emerging technologies are, about who they know somewhere else that's doing something differently in their organization that might be great for us to adopt into our organization. It's a really great way for us to adapt to the new realities of this world that we're in that is just moving and changing so quickly.